Hello, my name is Marcy Boudreau, and today I'm going to talk about the Early Number Sense Assessment. This tool was created by teachers for K-3 teachers. It is in its first trial this year, and it is most likely in every school. Some schools have 2 kits, some just 1. As you can see on the screen, it's a collection of hands-on materials as well as literacy resources, and some printed materials. If you want to find out more about the assessment and possibly look at more of the resources available, you can go to NLPS Learns and you can look at the grade that you're inquiring about as we have it organized from K1, 2, and 3. You can see if you click on your grade, this is an example of grade 2, that it is broken up by the sub-test skills. It is also providing you with additional information you might be interested in to use for your grade. Some teachers ask, how long does the assessment take to administer? If you are administering the entire assessment, it's going to take some time, especially learner by learner and a total of 24 possibly students in your class. We're recommending that you do only one sub-test at a time, possibly doing patterning, possibly doing matching numerals. In this case, I used the tool to assess learners in grades K-3 using the one-to-one correspondent. I'm going to show you the data that we were able to collect. This is from a group of kindergarten learners, and we just focused on question number 5, which is one-to-one correspondent, and it's counting to 10 orally or further, and counting to 5 using concrete materials. As you can see, this class, or a portion of the class data you see, majority of the students were able to at least count to 5 and some to 10 and onwards. Others were able to identify the 5 bears and count them. Even when I changed the arrangement of the bears, they were able to count them. Some had to count one by one. Others were able to trust the count, and even when I spread them out or changed them again, they still knew they were 5. So what does this tell us? It tells us that these students have been practicing learning how to count using concrete materials, and that maybe their next steps is focusing on counting objects to 10 or further and moving on even to larger numbers for oral as well. This information can also be used to share with families as an OCSL, and we'll talk about that in a little bit later. Next, I'd like to show you the grade 3 example of students that I assessed. We're focusing on the same question, one-to-one correspondent. In this case, how many? The number is 50. You are welcome to change that number. In the kit, we have 50 unifixed cubes that you can use. And I asked the children to tell me how many. They were individually separated. Some kids did the one-to-one count. Some grouped them naturally. I changed the arrangement to groups of 10 and asked them to count. Some were able to do that. Some broke them into 5s. The more I changed the arrangement, some kids were able to do it, or they would revert back to the one they were confident with, which is grouping by 10s. What does this data tell us? It tells us that some of our learners are confident in different ways of grouping objects when the number gets larger. Maybe our next goal for the majority of these learners is to move to counting numbers to 100 and the ways that we group them. There was one learner that chose to group, or actually 2 that grouped them by 25s, and that's becoming more complex. And so that would turn into 4 groups of 25 for 100. Some of this information can be used as an OCSL, as I mentioned earlier. This is a K1 example of the information I did collect from a learner and meeting the 4 criteria of the learning standard, which is ways to make 10 and arranging numbers and still recognizing them. Using a student example, as you can see, and then having this child reflect for student voice. Lastly, we want to continue these skills and encourage kids to practice them. My 3 favorite go-to are dice, cards, and dominoes.